this is your boy John from the Jersey Shore, and I am back with you today to give you my review of the 2006 film, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Beginning. TCM The Beginning was written by Sheldon Turner and it was directed by Jonathan Liebesman. Starring Jordana Brewster, Matt Bomer, Ermy as Officer Hoyt, and Andrew Bernarski as Leatherface. So our story begins with a woman working in a meatpacking plant. She doesn't look like she's doing too hot, and suddenly she grabs a hold of her abdomen and she yells up to her boss that she needs to take a break. The boss seemingly ignores her and she winds up falling down on the floor. You can see prior to her falling that her water has broken and that she's bleeding badly. She hits the floor, he runs down there and she looks like she's dead. But suddenly she gasps for air and then she dies. After she dies, he looks down between her legs and he sees that there's a baby there. And that baby is nasty. Next, we see a woman outside rummaging through the trash. She's digging through the trash. Remember, this is a meatpacking plant. It's also a slaughterhouse. She's pulling things out of the trash, and she's smelling it. So she's going, dumpster by dumpster, smelling this nasty-ass food, or was supposed to be food, or what's supposed to not be food. You decide. And eventually, she hears something inside of one of these dumpsters. She opens up the lid and there's that nasty ass baby inside of the dumpster. So this lady went up there looking for a snack and she found a baby. She's a mama now. So the credits start to roll and you see that this baby's name is Thomas Hoyte. That's Leatherface. So as these credits are rolling, if you actually pay attention to them, you see the growth of this child, or the lack thereof growth of this child, mentally anyway. You see his progression, or also lack thereof progression, throughout his childhood, and you also see flashes of newspaper articles that the meatpacking plant and the slaughterhouse are closing. There's also headlines in there that state that this town in Texas has now died because this meatpacking plant and slaughterhouse were the lifeblood of this community. So now that the credits are done, we're way in the future of where we were when this movie began. Began with Leatherface as a baby. Now we're at a point where Leatherface is actually working inside of this slaughterhouse. The boss tells somebody to go up to Leatherface and tell him he needs to go home. He had a job? Who the hell hired him? Whatever. So this dude now has to go tell Thomas Hoyte, Leatherface, that he's got to go home. He doesn't belong here anymore. We're shutting down. This guy comes back to the boss and tells him, I think he just likes being here. So he does go in there. He tells him he does need to go home. He calls him dumb, or he calls him stupid, or something ridiculous like that. Oh, not smart. So he does. Leatherface vacates the property. At least that's what they think. So now the story jumps over to 4 young couples that are at a hotel. 2 guys, 2 girls. The guys are getting ready to head off to Vietnam, one of which is returning to Vietnam. The other is supposed to be going for the first time. These 2 dudes are brothers. They're both at this hotel trying to get a little before they hit the road for a road trip and then head to Vietnam. So now the story jumps back over to the meatpacking plant. It's the last night. The boss is in there shutting off the lights. He's closing down for the final time. Guess who walks up behind him? You guessed it. Leatherface is standing behind him with a sledgehammer. He winds up taking out both of his knees. He hits the ground. He breaks a table leg off of the desk, so the desk now has fallen on top of him with all of its contents. And now he picks up the sledgehammer and just bashes this dude's head in. Now the cops show up. The cop that does show up is the little skinny, sweaty dude from the Rob Zombie movies with the 70s mustache. I can never remember that dude's name. So he shows up. He has a feeling that it was Thomas Hoyte that did this, and he goes over to the Hoyte house. When he gets to the Hoyte house, Dad's there. Dad is portrayed by Ermy. So he says, I haven't seen him. He's not here. He gets in the cop car with the cop and they go out looking for Thomas. While they're driving down the road, they spot Thomas. He's just walking down the road carrying a chainsaw. After he beat the boss to death with that sledgehammer, he found that chainsaw sitting on the desk. He just thought he might need it. And we all know that he did. So the cop is approaching Leatherface very slowly, telling him to stop, And what he doesn't realize is that behind him is Leatherface's dad took the shotgun off of the dashboard of the car, walked up behind the cop, and he just blows the cop's brains out. So for those of you who saw the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie, the remake in 2003, you know that Leatherface's father was riding around town in a police car with a police uniform on, right? Well, this is where he got it. Apparently that police officer's name was Officer Hoyt. That's the tag on the uniform, and Leatherface's daddy is definitely not Mr. Hoyt. And now it's time to rejoin our two couples. They have to stop at a convenience store, and while they're at this convenience store, the two girls go to the bathroom. They do whatever they got to do at the store. This store is actually ran by the woman who found Leatherface in the dumpster. So while they're in there, they run into a couple of bikers that they saw earlier in the movie. They were riding down the road earlier. A biker gang drove past them and were harassing them, kicking the side of their Jeep and so forth, whatever. So now they ran into them again. The girls decide, let's get out of here. Let's just go. So the four of them jump back in the Jeep and they take off. After they take off, one girl who was part of that biker gang takes it upon herself to chase them. So as she's chasing them down the road, our couples in the Jeep realize that she's behind them. Everybody in the Jeep is arguing because the one brother who was returning to Vietnam finds out from the other brother that he's not planning on going to Vietnam. He's going to take his girl and they're going to run away to Mexico. So they're having a big round-robin argument about this, and they're kind of ignoring the girl that's riding the motorcycle behind them. She pulls out a sawed-off shotgun and starts pointing it at him to tell him to pull over. The driver of the Jeep reaches into the glove compartment and pulls out a gun. After he takes his eyes off the road, stops paying attention to what he's doing, he starts pointing that girl on the gun at the girl on the motorcycle, and he runs straight into a cow that's standing in the middle of the road. Now the cops show up, but Officer Hoyt ain't a cop. So as he is approaching this accident, he just pulls out his gun and blows away the biker girl. Then he puts both guys and one girl in the back of his squad car. But where's the other girl? So after he scares these three half to death, he takes off in the squad car. But they ain't going to the police station. I thought that this movie provided a lot of really cool information. You find out that Leatherface was actually thrown away when he was a baby. He wasn't born into this family. They actually found him. You see his mother as a young lady. You see how his father got his police uniform and his police car. If you saw the remake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, like I mentioned earlier, you know that the grandfather was in a wheelchair and he had no legs. You see how he loses his legs. You see how Leatherface gets his chainsaw. You see how Leatherface got his first mask made of human skin in this movie. There's just a whole lot of backstory here that's provided to you, and it all fits together very nicely. Right off the bat, when I was seeing a whole lot of the stuff that they were providing you with as far as backstory goes, I thought that maybe I was in for a movie that had way too much stuff crammed into it. That I thought that with all of the backstory, how are they going to actually provide you with a good story in this movie to hold your attention, so that it felt more like a movie rather than a documentary. But they did actually do a pretty good job of balancing the backstory as well as the news story. Another very cool thing that is in this movie that is also in the 2003 film is the house itself. The view from the outside of the house, it's awesome. The setting for this couldn't be more perfect. It's a gigantic cement house that just looks huge and intimidating and cold. It's really, really cool. The setting in this, the house itself where all these terrible crimes take place is amazing. As far as the special effects in this movie go, Greg Nicotero was the head in that department again in this movie. He's done so many horror movies. Most people know him from The Walking Dead now, but what a lot of people don't know is this dude has been around forever. This movie is extremely violent. It is extremely bloody and graphic. There are just buckets of blood in the murders in this movie. Blood splattering all over the place with a chainsaw. And what I did really like about this was they all appear to be practical effects. If there are any CGI effects in this movie whatsoever, they are very few and far between. This is a practical effects showcase right here. And as usual, Greg Nicotero's work is amazing. Another thing that I really liked about this movie is that there are a few obvious nods to the 1974 Tobe Hooper film. The three that come to mind are there's a family dinner in this movie. There's one scene in the movie where a girl jumps out the window to escape from the Sawyer family. And another one is when someone is approaching the house, there's a really low camera angle that you almost see her from almost knee or thigh level pointing up towards the house. That's a really cool shot, and that's one of the most memorable shots from the first film. So Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the beginning. I thought this movie was outstanding. The cast was great. The backstory was interesting as well as great. The story, the new story, the fresh story with the new characters was great. Everything about this movie was really, really good. It was very well made. The effects were fantastic. So as if you can't tell, I like this movie quite a bit. If you like this franchise and you have not seen this movie, find this movie and watch it. It's really, really good. Alright folks, that's going to do it for my review of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the beginning. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you really like this video and you have been enjoying my content, please do me a huge favor. Click that subscribe button, and after you click that subscribe button, remember to ring that notification bell. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. Have a kick-ass day, and thank you for watching.